Hello and welcome to In the Know with Wolfpack Athletics. From interviews with student athletes, coaches, staff, and alumni, we will cover the latest in Loyola athletics and look back to the history of the Wolfpack. Get ready for an insider's look. So let's get in the know. Now we're going to go back in time. Here with us to take that trip is Ramon Vargas. Besides being an award-winning journalist and Loyola grad, Ramon serves as our historian for the Loyola Hall of Fame. So Ramon, grateful for your work in our Hall of Fame. And one of the things I want to ask you first of all is how did you get interested in the history of Loyola athletics?
It dates back to my time at the Maroon. I used to just like to dig up through old issues, and obviously I was covering Coach Orlando's basketball teams and Coach Doobie's basketball teams back then, and I know you were the sports information director. So, so I was already covering Loyola sports, and then honestly, the thing that caught my eye was the 1945 national championship banner. I'd never heard of Loyola having won a national championship, before I got here and before then. And then obviously I was also, I guess the other version of the story when I tell it is also when I was, I remember one day just being very curious about what it would be like to live here, to attend Loyola during World War II, and just opened the issue and just happened to flip open to the team. To Loyola wins national basketball tournament, and so I was like, wow. So, I just kind of started backwards, kind of going through the season. Through and the Maroons, I keep on flipping because the Maroons are like in a bound book, so I'm just kind of flipping through this book backwards, and then from there just kind of going back to like the 30s, and so you're learning about some athletes that won gold medals in the Olympics, and then we had a football team and a football stadium where the dorms are, and so it was between that, and then obviously I'd fill in the gaps through the in the recplex or the sports complex. We would have the Hall of Fame display, and so you'd see the write-ups, and it was just fascinating how big of a deal, and a legitimate mid-major that Loyola was. Not that, and I know you've done a lot of good work and great work to make Loyola very competitive at the NAIA level, but there was a time when, world-class athletes went to school here and represented Loyola and won, national and world titles.
Mm-hmm. So our only national championship is at 45 basketball team, and I like to tell our group all the time, I feel today we're as close to get our second national championship than we've ever been, right?
Absolutely.
So, but you wrote a book on the 45 national championship team. Just talk a little bit about that team.
Yeah, it was such an interesting time in the city's history. A lot of people, a lot of young people, a lot of young men in New Orleans are going to be serving in the military at that time. And so, just in my research, one of the things that kind of held over, it was kind of like a pall over. It seemed like the time here was. Neighbors that didn't come back from the war, or loved ones, relatives who didn't come back from the war, and you would see alums write into the newspaper, right? So that's very much like the thing that's going on, right? Everyone right now is dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. We're talking, and we're still waiting to find out if the president, is. And so that was like the big kind of dominating world event was the war, and then. The basketball team here became such a boon, went 121 of their 26 games, and then went undefeated, earned a berth to the national title, and then won it, right? It was a 16-team tournament, and won it, and it was mostly a team of young freshmen, sophomores. And so these were either people who had gone to the war and then come back, who had served in the military, not necessarily had gone to the war, but had served in the military and then had come back, or were studying before they went into the military, toward the end of the war. So it's during the 1944-45 season, and so you're talking about Jesuit players, Holy Cross players, so New Orleans, and Metairie guys, Mid-City. Just various neighborhoods from the area, and just all kind of put their differences from their school bowl rivalries aside, and and did something that's never been done, had never been done before and has never been done since here. And so, you're talking about Leroy Cholette, who was one of the best players in the country, and certainly was an All-American, gave an All-American performance for that championship, and then obviously made it to the NBA. I mean, as far as I know, I'm not entirely sure. I believe he may be the one of the few, if not the only, NBA player from Loyola, and he made an NBA Finals. And with the Syracuse Nationals, lost to a team that we now know as the Los Angeles Lakers. Lost the finals to them, and they almost. They almost won the first game, which could have, they lost the first game by a point, could have deflected. So he was very on the cusp of being an NBA champion. But even people that didn't have that level of success, founded schools, there were dentists. This is one of the best players on the team. Jim Halpert was a longtime dentist around here. There's a manager by the name of Frank France, founded Keogh France. Tommy Whitaker founded Lake Castle School, and so a lot of just people who made names, locally outside of athletics, who were on that team. So it was very, very unique chapter in city history and city sports history, and then obviously at Loyola.
Mm-hmm. Is there a particular game that team won that kind of maybe propelled them to the national championship besides the finals, right?
Sure.
Is there a game that could have tripped them up? That
Yeah, I mean, there was definitely an era where you heard me mention. Leroy Cholette and Tommy Whitaker, and I don't mean to cop out, but there was an area, there was a stretch there where both of them were hurt, and missed a stretch of the season right in the middle, right? So you're talking about like that December, January stretch in college basketball where it's make or break, right? Like if you're going to keep up and you're going to do, you have to perform well, and so they were down their two best players, and Jim Halpert just kind of carried them through that. He was mostly defending. He is, rebounding. He's passing, and then, but with the top two scorers out, he had a score, and it was just basically him. Mm-hmm. And he lived up to that expectation. So I feel like if he doesn't step up his performance, they maybe fall just short of making the bid, and then the season just kind of ends as like, that was a good team, kind of high teens win team, as opposed to national title.
Right. And the national title game, tell us about that.
They played Pepperdine in Kansas City, and they were that team was much taller than Loyola, right? Loyola had like a 6'3" center, 6'4" center, right? Which, I mean, these days it's like there's point guards that are there's point guards that are taller than that. But the coach Jack Orsley just played kind of like a high pressure, just kind of very up the court, pressuring them, on their side of the court, not surrendering that half court. And they really struggled with it, so they were trying to make them shoot as far away from the basket, right? So there's no 3-point line, there's no real mid-range, jump, there's no. Those days you're trying to get as close to the basket to score, and so they were trying to get them to shoot as far away. And it sounds simple, but the fact that they were in the, you're talking about like a 7-8 player rotation, right? So so you're talking about 8, 5 and then 3, and then you're just kind of rotating them around. And to be able to do that for, and they won it wasn't a close game. I mean, they won relatively comfortably, double-digit win, and so. I think just and that's what everyone remembered. I think it takes away from that season. Obviously, it's the title game, right? But they're just a lot of these guys. First time they're out of town, they're young, and just it's like their first time. They're in a different place, and they're playing. The gym here. I mean, it was a gym. It looked like it was like a little shoebox gym, and they're playing like in a legitimate arena. And it's so just kind of overwhelmed, different, strange place, a lot of people there, and the way that he managed them, Orsley just kind of managed them and kind of laid out set them up to succeed. I think in an environment that a lot of those guys hadn't been used to. That's talking across the board to the players, most of whom have passed away, unfortunately now. Having talked to them, that's what they remembered the most across the board.
So it's interesting that the parallels from that 45 team and this year's team for us. You mentioned the war, right? And I believe in 44, the year before that we won the national championship, there was no national championship because the tournament was canceled. Mm-hmm. Last year, the NAIA national championship was canceled for the pandemic. So We're telling our group this is our year. Like these are the parallels from that championship team 76 years ago. This is our year, and it's the NAIA National Championship is in Kansas City as well. So
yeah, and so it's the equivalent. I mean, it's always been, as far as I'm aware. I mean, I know that like Kansas City, like that's one of their things. Like that's where they go play. So no, absolutely, and that's why. I mean, it's easy. You know, I think Katrina. I was in that first freshman class right after Katrina, right? And so that was just kind of like that kind of like dominated, that like marked everyone's life. And right now, I know. I obviously don't go to school here, but living in the city and working in the city, right, the coronavirus is everywhere, and just this entire year, right, the constant storm threats and how disruptive everything has been. And so absolutely, I mean, it's easy to kind of see how it was back then, where the thing, it's just that like you're hearing from people over there, and then sometimes losing people over there, and so that was very much present, and then them winning the title. It was just the letters. That's the primary way that people communicated from outside. The letters just poured in after they won, just talking about how, guys that are like in the Pacific Theater and the European Theater writing in, talking about how they were following, when that they had read the paper. The family had sent them the Maroon or like the Times-Picayune when they had won, and we're talking about how huge of a morale boost that was, and obviously they're over there fighting a war, and so and how uplifting it was and inspiring it all was. So. Yeah.
Amazing. Appreciate you taking the time.
Absolutely.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us for this week's In the Know. We hope you enjoyed this insider look. Join us every week as we dive into today's news and back into the history of Loyola athletics.